My name is Jason Gay. This is the Wall Street Journal Podvideocast. I don't know what we're calling it. We still don't have a name. If you got a good name for us. Joining us, you know him. You recognize him, of course. Dana White, the, what do we call it? CEO, the boss, the underboss.
I'm the president of the UFC.
The president of the Ultimate Fighting Championship. And you're in town here in New York City to talk about UFC 217, which arrives in a couple of weeks at Madison Square Garden, November 4th. But before we get to that, I want to ask you a little bit about Las Vegas. You're a Boston guy by birth, but Vegas is your town and has been the UFC's headquarters for a long time. And these are bleak questions, but where were you when you first started hearing about what was happening last Sunday?
Yeah, I was home, and I just turned on the news at about 10 after 11, and I was watching the whole thing unfold. I stayed up all night watching it. Pretty surreal when that's going on 10 minutes from your house. It was pretty crazy.
You must be thinking, too, I got to know some people who are there.
I knew people. One of our Octagon girls actually called me for tickets to that thing. They were impossible tickets to get. Mm-hmm. I got her a ticket, and I literally had my security guy is a former, big-time police officer in Vegas. They called him in. He's retired. He works for me. They called him in that night, and I was like, please find her.
Yeah.
See if you can get her, see if she's down there, see if she's okay. It ended up she got out. So
does it still feel raw? I mean, does it just feel like it's sort of still surreal and hard to process what's happened?
Yeah, it was you have to go through it to understand it. And when it happens in your town, like I'm sure many of you felt here in New York when the towers went down, it's a crazy feeling.
Yeah. One thing that's come out of this is this understanding, at least, that Las Vegas is a much bigger city than the Strip, than the casinos and the shows and so on. And it's a community, and in some ways a small community. What is something about Las Vegas that people who only are familiar with that part of it don't really understand and appreciate maybe?
Huge community, tons of schools. There's over 2 million people there that live there. And I think more than ever, we realized what a real amazing community it is when this whole thing went down. A lot of the big guns in town got together, and I sort of spearheaded this whole thing to take care of we don't need any money from outside of Vegas. There's plenty of money there, and we've made a lot of money off these people who come and gamble and stay in the hotels, eat in the restaurants, go to events. And I felt that all the people that were affected by this thing were, that were injured or were killed. If we gave I donated $1 million, right? So $1 million is $1,600 each per person.
Yeah. That
doesn't fly them home. That doesn't bury a loved one.
Yeah.
So, I called out some of the big guys in town, and they stepped up and they delivered. So it was awesome. We, just us, not including everybody else. Everybody over $1 million. Right now, I think we're around $11 or $12 million.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was awesome.
You guys had a decision as an organization to make about 216, which was scheduled for Vegas. It was last Saturday. Was there ever any doubt about going ahead with it?
No. I absolutely wanted to go ahead with it. And MGM wasn't sure if they were going to, let any events happen that weekend. And I said, we have to do this. It's crazy not to do this. You don't let a coward determine what everybody else is going to do for the rest of their life. You can't do it. I mean, Vegas is as safe a city as anywhere in the world right now. This kind of stuff's happening everywhere. And, they agreed with me, and the event went on, and we ended up dedicating the whole week. First of all, we had over 1,500 first responders there, from police to firefighters to EMTs to the actual personnel in the hospitals. And then we had over a dozen people who were shot at the event. So it was awesome.
You've had some big nights in that town, but what was that night like?
It was awesome. It felt good. There's these 2 little girls that go to school with my kids, and they were both shot.
Kids?
Kids. One was shot in the back. They're in high school. One was shot in the back, and one was shot in the leg. And the little girl that got shot in the back, it pierced her lung. They didn't think she was going to make it. She got out of surgery, and she was good. And then their cousin was with them. She's terrified now to be in crowds and everything else. So we saw these guys, these little girls, of course, typical high school kids. They wanted to get out of out of the hospital in time to go to homecoming. So they came to the homecoming night, the big football game and everything.
Yep.
And that's where I met them. And I invited them to the event the next night. And the one cousin was hesitant to go back to an event, and it was at the big arena.
Yeah.
But when they got there, they felt safe. They had a great time. Everlast sang America the Beautiful, and it was awesome. It was so it was great. I was glad we did it, and it couldn't have gone off better.
How will this change, if it changes, Las Vegas as a city?
I think the way that it'll change not only Vegas, but most of the cities in this country with outdoor concerts and outdoor events is when doing the security for these things. You have now this is an option that some coward can hide somewhere with a an automatic rifle and shoot people. I think it's gonna affect New York with New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
Las Vegas with New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
It's going to change the way we think security wise about these things.
This is not an elegant pivot, but I do want to talk about 217, which is coming into Madison Square Garden. The last time you guys were here was the first time you were in New York City in Madison Square Garden with a main event. You had Conor McGregor versus Alvarez. You broke the single night box office, I believe, for MSG. How do you top that?
I think that that one's going to be tough to top. We broke the record there, but New York, Madison Square Garden is the place that everyone dreams to fight. Everyone dreams to perform. The place is so legendary. But we will sell out. We'll probably what we think we'll do. Yeah. We broke the all-time record. We smashed the all-time record.
What was the all-time record? Who had it?
Evander Holyfield.
Okay.
It was 11 million.
Okay.
Our last gate was 18 million. And we're going to come in again. This will be our second time, and we think we're going to come in second or third all-time gate.
Just behind yourself.
Or just behind Holyfield.
I mean, I know you want to put on a good night wherever you are, but do you feel an added pressure with New York City?
Yeah, I think that we obviously stack the cards as best we can, and when you go to MSG in the middle of NYC, you want to deliver. So we're bringing GSP.
You are bringing GSP, against a current champion, Michael Bisping, and GSP, George St. Pierre, is a UFC legend, but he's been out of the sport for 4 years. And I've heard you say this before, that you believe in fighters fighting, and you do worry about ring rust. Do we call it ring rust in the octagon, or is it octagon rust? Whatever it is.
Yeah, it's rust.
Is there any trepidation on your part that we're not going to see the legend that we're familiar with?
It's a possibility, yeah. I think that I'm a big believer in it, and I was just proven wrong recently when the Korean Zombie had to go they have to do mandatory military service in Korea. Okay. So they took him, snatched him in the prime of his career. He had to do the service. He came back, and he knocked out Dennis Bermudez in the first round, which is incredibly impressive. No ring rust on him. So we'll see what happens with GSP.
How old is he? 34?
Yeah, 34, and he's been out for 4 years.
For 4 years. What's another fight on the card that you're excited about?
Co-main event, Cody Garbrandt, who is the world champion, taking on his former training partner and teammate, TJ Dillashaw. These guys have serious bad blood, cannot stand each other, and it's probably going to be fight of the night. It'll be a great fight. Then Joanna Jędrzejczyk, the little beast from Poland. She is, with this fight, if she beats Rose Namajunas, which is another great fight, if she beats her, she breaks Ronda Rousey's record for consecutive title defenses.
You have stayed very invested in women's fighting in the wake of, Ronda Rousey losing a couple of big fights. There was some skepticism during her ascension that, well, maybe this is a short-time deal. Why do you remain committed to it? Is it strictly it works as a business?
Because the women are legit.
Yeah.
The women are legit. I never saw this coming. They're tough. They're nasty. Technically, they're unbelievable.
Yeah.
The women are even more fun to watch than the men.
Do you think that other sports maybe not realizing or maybe not realizing the potential that's there for women in other sports, that there's a market base or there's a fascination with it that they're not maybe realizing?
Here's the difference. When you look at the NBA, they're like, the NBA, the WNBA isn't as good as the NBA. You know, do they have shorter baskets or something? I don't know what it is. They're always
not shorter baskets. I think the ball might be slightly smaller.
Yeah. There's always something. It's the ball smaller, or they hit from shorter tees, or they don't play as many sets as the men.
Right.
Whatever the deal might be.
Right.
These girls do exactly everything exactly the same as the men do.
Yeah.
This is fighting, and I think what's so awesome about the women fighting is especially when you look at this whole thing that's going on with this Harvey Weinstein and these type of things, the women that are in the UFC are strong, badass women.
Yeah.
And I don't think we ever saw, when I say we, I'm talking about us in the fight business, where you would see a day where a woman could kick a man's ass.
Yeah.
And it's here.
Yeah.
It's here, it's now, and it's real. These women are legit.
But also,
this isn't some novelty. Like,
right.
We got some girls fighting, and they're gonna wear cute little outfits, and they're gonna throw punches at each other. These women are straight up killers.
No, and I feel I know you well enough to know that you do things because they're good business. I mean, you're not in this for just pats on the back. I mean, this has been a good business move for you guys.
It's been a very good business move for us.
Conor McGregor, what's his status? When do you think we'll see him next?
Hopefully by the end of the year.
End of this year, no kidding.
Yeah,
okay.
when we talked around the Mayweather fight, he wanted to get back on the horse and fight again. Plus, here's a fun fact for you. If he fights two more times before it's either, I can't remember what Forbes' year is. Forbes' year is either March or June. He'll be the highest paid athlete in the world. You know him.
Oh, yes.
He loves that stuff.
He wants that number one slot. Who's number one currently? Floyd?
It's got to be Floyd.
It's got to be Floyd, right? So he's got to get a couple under the wire. Does that fight now, the Mayweather-McGregor fight, it must feel like, I'm sure you would have preferred Conor to win, but it's got to feel like a total win for you guys. You surpass expectations. People thought it might be a disaster, and it was anything but. Were there moments where you were going into this thinking, like, I hope this goes well?
Let me tell you, yes. And I haven't felt that way ever. If not, I don't remember. It's been a long time.
Like nerves, like butterfly.
I mean, you had these boxing experts like Max Kellerman and Teddy Atlas and all these, Mike Tyson, basically saying Conor won't hit him with one punch.
Yeah.
Conor will not land 1 point punch on Floyd Mayweather.
I think you could bet that, actually.
You could bet that. Or there was an over-under on how many he would land.
Yeah.
And, obviously going into a fight, anything can happen. So, I was a little nervous going into that fight.
Were you surprised? I believe the numbers are, if not over, but very close to the all-time pay-per-view record.
We broke the record.
You broke the record, so it is now, and it definitely was the record.
The thing ended up doing 6.7 million pay-per-view buys globally. How about this? We broke the record in Australia.
Yeah.
We broke the record in the UK.
Yeah.
At 4 a.m.
Yeah.
4 a.m. we broke the pay-per-view record.
Yeah.
Broke the record in Spain, Canada, and the United States.
All things being equal, the stuff that happens on social media where people are like periscoping the fights and so on, is the net benefit good for you because more people are aware of this, or does it make you crazy because you're losing buys?
We broke that record too. The most pirated fight of all time. Yeah, that's another record we broke. Social media. Yeah. It was the most talked. It was the highest betting fight ever in the history of Las Vegas.
But how do you patrol the
highest betting sporting event?
Right.
Bigger than the Super Bowl.
Bigger than a Super Bowl. The handle was all. Yeah. No kidding. Wow. But on the sort of the piracy angle of it, I mean, is there any way to police that, or you just got to kind of let it fly?
No, we police it. We actually have, there's a lot of different things that we do. We catch people. We actually
not just
catch
for
people
this fight.
who
This is
pirate.
every month.
Every fight that we do. We battle piracy.
Yeah. We're in a pretty volatile moment for pro sports in this country. You got obviously a property with a great, passionate fan base that you're trying to grow, but there's a lot happening with television, cable, the digital environment. Nobody's promised tomorrow. Nobody's promised their audience. How do you keep going, and more importantly, how do you keep growing in this kind of climate?
Greatest thing about our sport is fighting works everywhere. Okay, I don't care what color you are, what country you come from, or what language you speak. We're all human beings. Fighting's in our DNA. We get it and we like it. I can tell you, throw tons of stats at you right now about the UFC and how well we do here, there, and everywhere else. But let me tell you this. I don't know if this is true, but it's what I truly believe. 2 men were put on this earth. One of them threw a punch, and whoever was standing around ran over and watched. Fighting is the first sport ever in the history of the world, and it'll be the last, too. It's just, if I'm laying in bed some night and I land on the Hispanic channel and there's a fight, right?
Right.
And the commentators are, blah, 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 they're talking about the fight. I don't know what they're saying. I don't care what they're saying. I don't have to understand
you have
the
to
language.
know a little bit more Spanish than that.
To understand what's going on in the fight. But if I'm out in London, I was just there a couple days ago.
Yeah.
I'm never going to figure out cricket, and I'm never going to care about it.
Right. Or
ever.
if you're from another country, you watch American football. Yeah.
That's exactly right. Yeah. But fighting, it works everywhere, all over this planet. And I've always said, now with technology, we're getting to the point that I always dreamed about. I always used to say, we'll take this thing all around the world, build a fan base, build up some talent in every country around the world, and then we'll get to a point in time where everybody can watch it at the same time on the same platform.
Yeah.
We're getting to that day.
On your own platform.
Right, on an OTT type, platform.
You do have a television contract coming up. Is that correct?
We do.
And do you anticipate that it will be a legacy network like you're currently with Fox? There's obviously the other networks that we're familiar with, but could it be a digital player? There's a lot of speculation. Amazon's moved into football. Could we see some sort of digital player entering that picture for you guys?
Absolutely. That stuff's all about to change. When I grew up, we had Channel 3, Channel 5, Channel 8, and Channel 13, right? And then the channel Sesame Street is on. Those are all the channels that we had, right? Now, what's crazy about television these days, I have DirecTV and I have cable, so I have 2,000 channels, and nothing's on, right? Right? Nothing's on. Right. And I think that we have the type of content that people will watch. And every once in a while, not every fight that I put on is a mega fight and a fight that spills over into the mainstream, but I'll get those twice a year.
Well, if you ever want to feel the volatility of this business, I know you have teenage kids. I mean, just watch them watch entertainment and how they do it. The notion of flipping channels. I mean,
they don't do it.
Yeah.
My kids don't watch television. They're 24/7 on their phone, and if they do want to watch TV, they go straight to Netflix.
Yeah, it's incredible. Legacy leagues out there. I'm just curious to get your thoughts about, you look at the footballs and the baseballs. Basketball seems to be a little bit on an upward incline, but there's concern, of course, about, television revenues there. These guys are locked into some big contracts, but, how will that change? NFL ratings, they're plateaued at best. Are those guys, do they need to start thinking about being a little more radical?
Yeah, I think where you really see it is if you look at ESPN. Look at how powerful ESPN was 5 years ago. You know, what they were getting per sub. Their subs are dropping.
Yeah,
and they're scrambling, trying to figure it out right now. They just started that BAM network, which is going to be an OTT.
Right.
There's no doubt that the internet and OTT is where it's all going. So it'll be interesting to see when the smoke clears, who's still around and who's not.
I mean, don't you think it's heading to, maybe it'll take a full generation, but that every league, professional sports league will be an independent operator with their own digital network, and you'll have your own equipment. I mean, you already have a lot of this stuff already with UFC, but
it's one of the great advantages that we have. We've always done all of this ourselves,
because people didn't want it at
Exactly.
first, right? You had to build up from
So
there.
people used to come in, they'd cut a deal with ABC, NBC, Fox, or whatever. Fox would pay them a big chunk of money.
Right.
And then they'd do all the production and do everything. We do everything ourselves.
Right.
We have everything in-house.
Another thing that I've been reading a lot about that I'm fascinated by is that young people, it's not just that they watch television differently, sports television, it's that they don't even watch the game in the manner that you and I did. We would turn on like an NFL game and be like, here's the first quarter, and now here's the second quarter, and here's the third. You watch it in this linear way, whereas a kid now, they have access to every highlight. Everything's coming to them instantaneously. They can watch 4 games at once. They know they're never going to miss anything. We used to worry about missing something on television, right? If you didn't have the TV on, you weren't going to see the big thing that happened. Now that's impossible. And so what does that do to an environment where a sporting event relies on people to be watching all the time?
It's true. No, these kids these days consume so much information, and they just scroll, and just, meanwhile, they're talking to their friends, and it's pretty crazy. It's interesting. You're dead on, though. That's why I love my content. My content works my content's quick, exciting,
right,
and fun to watch on any platform.
Yeah. And you're right. I mean, it requires minimal translation. You don't have to, telling people to go to, 217 if they haven't seen this before, if they can get a ticket. But you don't need a rule set to walk into that.
Right.
I have to ask you. Anthem situation in football, the protests that have been happening during the national anthem at NFL games. Were you NFL Commissioner Dana White, how would you have handled that situation?
First of all, I would never want to be the NFL commissioner. I think that's the worst job in all of sports. And people
why is it the worst?
People try to throw at me that this guy makes $40 million a year. Yeah. Not enough. It's not enough.
Underpaid.
Dana
White says Roger Goodell is underpaid.
100%
Why is it so hard, though? Is it because it looks like it's been made to look harder than it is, or it is actually so hard?
You're dealing with, first of all, if you look at the business of football, guy's doing a good job. Listen, sure. I'm a Patriots fan. Yeah. If anybody should be mad at Goodell, it should be me. But you got to look at the job this guy does as far as running the business of the NFL. Those guys are making $1 trillion, all right? Yeah. They're killing it.
Yeah.
Then you look at all the stuff that he has to deal with. There's murders. There's, all the stuff that happens with these players outside of, in the off season and on season sometimes. Nightmare dealing with all of that stuff and trying to do the right thing.
But
and
you're in that world too. I mean,
not like that. My guys aren't killing people. My guys aren't. I got a couple people here and there that are, they're knuckleheads that might do some drugs or something like that, but nothing crazy like the NFL has to deal with. You know what I mean? Then you got it. All these guys have to deal with all the different owners.
Yeah.
All the owners that you have to deal with.
Well,
you have to make, you're talking about, I don't know, what do they got, 32 owners or something like that?
31, and then the Packers are the,
billionaires.
Yeah.
So then you got to deal with 31 billionaires. You know what I mean? It's just then you got to deal with the media, and then these guys don't want to stand for the anthem, and it just keeps piling up, man. $40 million is not enough money for Roger Goodell.
So what would you have done? Would you have said, when this first started to percolate, said like, look, we need a rule here, or just kind of let it fly and not get so intimidated by the public outcry? I mean, what's the right solution? Have they screwed this up so they have no going back now?
It's a tough situation because at the end of the day, listen, I'm a guy, I believe you should stand for the national anthem. We're all Americans. Listen, there's some things going on in this country, and this country's, in a crazy place right now. But come on, man, at the end of the day, what we need is unity. At least we can unify on our national anthem, on our, on us as Americans.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, it's a free country.
Yeah.
It's a free country. If you don't want to kneel, if you don't want to stand to the national anthem, you really don't have to. This isn't a communist country, or you know what I mean? At the end of the day, you can do what you want. But I think it's the one time that as Americans, we're unified.
You're somebody who campaigned for Donald Trump. You spoke at the Republican National Convention. Does it surprise you to see the president in this lock battle with NFL owners? Is it surprising to you that this is happening right now? These tweets on
No, it's Donald, man. It's definitely the way he is. But you know, I on the flip side, I get it too. You know, it's just, I don't know. It's a really tough situation.
Speaking of tough situations, one thing that you guys were made some changes a couple years going back was with regard to drug testing policy. And I've always wanted to ask you about this because you didn't just sort of do this sort of window dressing approach. You brought in United States Anti-Doping Agency, USADA. You also brought in a guy named Jeff Nowitzki, who, if people understand anti-doping, was an incredibly significant player in the sort of unraveling of the U.S. Postal Service and the Lance Armstrong story and so on, Barry Bonds and other cases. I mean, these were some heavy hitters. This was not just, a press release that went out. You guys took a very solid step with this policy, but at the same time, it's cost you some fighters along the way. Some guys have gotten popped and money.
A lot of money.
Do you still feel, as vigorous about this as you did when you started it?
I do, because
Why?
What we're trying to do is everything that we've done hasn't been about right here, right now.
Yeah.
It's always about the future.
Right.
The future of the sport, the future of the sport. It's one of the things that I think, boxing did and continues to do to absolutely kill itself is never care about the future. Every boxing event is like a going out of business sale, okay? They're trying to get every dime they can out of you and stuff it in their pockets, and they don't put any money back into
town.
it.
Yeah.
Exactly. And we did the exact opposite, because if you can keep fighters off this junk, obviously, nobody would pop for drugs and screw up fights and things like that. Plus, once you get on, you take a talented athlete, right? You put them on this stuff for a very limited time. They excel and do better.
Yeah.
Then it always goes like this.
Yeah.
It ends up destroying great careers instead of, and if you get caught, your legacy is tainted forever and you're never looked at the same. We're trying to get rid of that.
Do you brace after events, like a couple days later, you're sort of waiting for the A test to get back?
So Jeff Nowitzki, the guy you're talking about, the one guy I don't like getting phone calls from, right before an event or after an event. If he wants to scare the shit out of people, all he's got to do is call you. His name pops up on the phone, and I'm like, oh God, I don't want to answer this.
What about your own future? You've had, obviously an ownership change with WME, IMG coming into the sport. I know I believe you're contractually obligated to stay with UFC for a little while. But is there any part of you, especially after the Mayweather-McGregor fight, that's thinking like, man, boxing could use a little reorganization here. Maybe there's a way to grow into that a little bit.
Believe me, I've been approached by people, but where people don't understand is, first of all, I'm still an owner.
Yeah.
I still have an ownership position in the UFC. And I signed a contract, but no contract can keep you anywhere. I could leave tomorrow if I want to. I obviously couldn't go work for somebody else, but I could leave whenever I want to leave. I don't want to leave. This is what I love to do. I'm 48 years old. This is what I jump out of bed every day and love doing. I love working with Ari. Ari and I actually get along really, really well. And then his other partner Patrick is the nicest guy in the world. Right. So, I couldn't be in a better position. I couldn't be doing it with better people. And I'm good.
Could you ever see a circumstance in which you combined combat sports into a single event where you had a boxing match and then you take up the ring and you lower an octagon, you do it all, a couple marquee fights in one night?
No, but I could see bringing boxing under our umbrella and trying to see what we could do with that.
Right.
I could see doing that.
What about politics? You going to run for office?
No, I don't want anything to do with that.
You must have been approached about that at some point or another.
I would. That's
what would be the part about political life that would be the hardest for you?
The thing that would be the best about political life is I would actually want to make a difference. I would actually want to make a change. But to be honest with you, if I stop doing this, one of the things that I would really focus on is making education better in Las Vegas. I would like to work on the schools and break down the system that's in place now because it's a mess.
How's that Agassiz school that he has going on there? Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was sort of that's an idea too, sort of self-started charter school, I believe.
Charter schools, yeah. And he takes care of less fortunate kids who are actually bright but can't afford to go to, private schools.
What if the president was to come to you and say, like, okay, Betsy DeVos is leaving, and would you like to become Secretary of Education for the last 2 years?
Interesting.
Okay. In the meantime, UFC 217, Madison Square Garden, November 4th. George St. Pierre, Michael Bisping. It is a spectacular event if you've never been, but I'm sure you have. Dana White, as always, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming to the Wall Street Journal. Join us next time when we will have the great blank. Who knows? Thank you.